A spring convention about Scotland's future to unite people from across society with regular discussion and open debate, free from party politics, on matters of crucial importance to the nation, focusing clearly on Scotland's future and the achievement of meaningful self-determination.
I'm delighted to introduce Alistair McIntosh, and he's a writer, academic and activist. He's a fellow of the Centre of Human Ecology and also a visiting professor in that subject at the University of Glasgow. He's been involved in land reform. He's got a number of books. I noticed one recently in the Glenlyon coffee shop in Aberfeldy, which was, I think, Soil and Soul, I think it was, People Against Corporate Power. And his opening address is entitled The Roots and Vision of a Nation, and I think that will lay a good philosophical foundation for the rest of the day's discussions. Alistair.
I was actually born in Doncaster, where my Scottish father got his first job after graduating in medicine from Edinburgh University with both Highland and Lowland roots. And it was there he met my English mother, and we moved to the parish of North Loss in 1960 when I was 4 years old. My friend in Mackenzie there, or Jock as we call him, we grew up as boys together, worked together in the seaweed factory, that kind of rootedness in the community. To the roots and vision of a nation, what does it mean to be a human being? What does it mean to be in this body with these people standing on the solid ground of Scotland's soil right now? I asked, prompted by some lines that Hugh McDermott wrote in 1939. Scotland's terrible declension, our terrible decline, is not a defeat on the material plane. Materially more is with us than against us. We have suffered an appalling reverse because of the incoherence of our meaning. What we need above all is a revolution in morale, a return to our roots, a rediscovery of deep realities we have neglected. An incoherence of our meaning. Well, might we ask, what is the meaning that gives meaning to meaning? For me, meaning is a magnetic field that aligns the compass of our lives. It maps out the ground on which a certain of our own poets have said we live and move and have our being. It constellates communities of place that, scaled to be community writ large, make up a nation. McDermott casts us into deeper questions than belie appearances. Not for nothing did George Elder Davey remind us, in writing on the democratic intellect, of, quote, the proverbial phrase metaphysical Scotland. And as he put it, our tendency for arguments about material things to turn into verified problems of the relation of matter to mind. A case in point was the philosopher James Frederick Ferrier, born just a little more than a mile northwest from where we sit today. In 1854, he coined the term epistemology for the theory of what does and doesn't count as knowledge. Very useful when Donald Trump turns up. But lend an ear to where Ferrier was coming from. This is from his seminal work, The Institute of Metaphysics. My philosophy is Scottish to the very core. It is national in every fibre and articulation of its frame. It is the natural growth of old Scotland soil. And whatever its merit or demerit might be, was born and bred in the country, and is essentially native to the soil. What happens when we lose such things? McDermott was not alone in his concern about declension. Adrienne Rich was a poet of Southern Protestant and Jewish heritage. Her essay collection from 1993, What is Found There, reflects on America's national despair. She suggested clogs folks' lives. We see it worryingly even, quote, in a political activist who doggedly goes on, turning in the ashes of the same burnt-out rhetoric, the same gestures, all imagination spent. The poorer we become, she warned, the less we remember what we had, and this loss can be a leak in history, or a shrinking in the vitality of everyday life. To be a nation then invites McDermott's rediscovery of deep realities we have neglected. And perhaps tellingly, given that his book was about Scotland's islands, the Gaelic language, which expresses this in two tightly interwoven cultural terms. Duchas, meaning placehood, but to a depth that is geographical, psychological, and spiritual, and a correspondingly rich dualness, meaning peoplehood. What is it that can braid these two to make community writ large? Well, Ernest Renan hailed from Brittany. He was a pioneering scholar of the poetry of the Celtic peoples, and in 1882 delivered a celebrated address at the Sorbonne. Called Qu'est-ce qu'une nation? What is a nation? 9 words sum up his theory. A nation is a living soul, a spiritual principle. A nation comes to be, he suggested, when in the course of history a large aggregation of people, healthy of mind and warm of heart, create a moral consciousness. This arises from the willingness of each individual to abdicate their self-interest for the good of the community. And that is what confers legitimacy, a nation's right to exist. The sharp eye might spot the similarity to Rousseau's social contract, by which citizens implicitly compact to advance the common good. But Renan, brief though he is, takes us deeper into metaphysics, and that as a byword for the spiritual. Both thinkers contrast with Thomas Hobbes. For him, the state, in whatever sense of nation might attach to it, is a leviathan, a mighty mechanistic monster, to which a population surrenders its individuality, becoming subjects to a sovereign's absolute power. It helps to know that Hobbes was writing during England's civil wars. Life, as he put it, could be nasty, British and short, and therefore prospective subjects might desire a strong-armed king or queen out of their greater fear of one another. We can see that whereas Hobbes took a deficiency view, Renan looked to higher human calling. For Renan, quote, a nation is then a great solidarity, constituted by the sacrifices of the past, but summed up in the present by a tangible fact, consent, the clearly expressed desire to live our common life. That desire included is nothing less than a perpetual affirmation of life. If I might remain in old alliance with our Gaulish neighbours, in 1943 the resistance activist Simon Weil, then exiled in London, wrote a report for General de Gaulle's Free French movement. Published later as The Need for Roots, she set out 15 fundamental human needs. Without apology, each is related to the life of the soul, and in culmination, rootedness is perhaps the most important and least known human spiritual need. A human being is rooted through their real, active and natural participation in the life of a collectivity that keeps alive treasures of the past and has aspirations for the future. Renan might have thoroughly have approved, for albeit faced with the exigencies of fascism, her rooted connectivity describes a nation. That rootedness in the soil of place gives life, that stretches out its branches to give vision. And whereas history tells us about our past, vision tells us about our future. Therefore, find your voice, Scotland, wrote the late Kilburly poet Lorna Waite in Scotia Nova. Tessa Ransford's and Alistair Finley's 2014 anthology of poetry for a better nation. Learn your stories, speak them to the land. Listen and hear the water teach thee. That when Donald Dewar declared wisdom, justice, compassion, integrity, in reconstituting Scotland's Parliament, he borrowed from Sir Walter Scott that only a man with soul so dead could have no sense, no feel for his native land. The novels of Dostoevsky warn repeatedly that deadness or loss of soul leaves no clear light of reason, but chilling nihilism. As Patrick Kavanagh put it in the Meditation on the Second World War, the bedlam of time is an empty bucket rattled. And as an ancient voice reminds us also, where there is no vision, the people perish. For vision issues from the heart's inner eye. It thaws frost-numbed rationality and allows reorientation of our sense of meaning to the soul's magnetic field. That, I believe, is the meaning that gives meaning to meaning. It sets our bearings and our personal bearing, our presence, our comportment, our carriage. In which respect, note these words in Donald Dewar's address. This is about more than our politics and our laws. This is about who we are, how we carry ourselves. A bardic or prophetic eye, an eye that's opened up to vision, helps to protect us from mere ideology. It helps us to refute the xenophobic sense of belonging and identity. Ours must be, if we remember ourselves, one Scotland, many cultures, a Scots internationalism. This is no newfangled wokery, as some might try to do it down. Going back as far as 1320, our charter text, the Declaration of Our Growth, extended scripture to proclaim that there is neither weighting nor distinction of Jew and Greek, Scotsman or Englishman. Not blood and soil, but soil and soul. In the words of the historiographer royal, Professor Christopher Smout, such an accent of the mind renders Scotland a famous enigma to students of nationalism, one by which modern Scottish identity is much more firmly allied to a sense of place than to a sense of tribe. In the 19th century, Hebrides Alexander Carmichael noted that fostership was a particularly close and tender tie, more close and more tender even than blood. Thus the Gaelic proverbs, as blood to the 20th, fostership to the 100th degree, or the bonds of milk, meaning nurture, are stronger than the bonds of blood, or lineage. I've tried to sum it up elsewhere. In Scotland, a person belongs inasmuch as they are willing to cherish and be cherished by this place and its peoples. We get ahead of ourselves, we trip up on our own shadows if we think that outward structures of law and force alone will build such qualities. I noticed recently that Robin McAlpine, our speaker this morning after Ailsa Rayburn and Laurie McFarlane, wrote in a newspaper column, "Even the move from cage to free-range hens, all of one crucial aspect in common. None of them would have happened via politics alone. In all cases, the heavy lifting was done by civil society or citizens themselves. And as Leslie Riddoch says, Scotland will become independent only if we deepen the qualities of independence within ourselves. Only if we engage with one another, respectfully, patiently, generously, without shouting or name-calling, can we hope to swing support for independence from its frustrating 50-50-ish yes-no hiatus to a convincing demonstration of the people's settled will. Only then, if our aspirations continue to be thwarted from outwards, can we cut to Karen Kenyon Wright's claim of right, as he put it. What if that other voice we all know so well responds by saying, "We say no, and we are the state"? Well, we say yes, and we are the people. Short of the empty bucket wrapper of taking up arms, I see no other way but through the ballot box. It boils down to each of us, to our relations with our colleagues, relatives and neighbours. I have placed a heavy burden on you in this address, asking that you consider roots inclusively. For some plants grow from propagation, but others grow in by seed. I've asked you to consider Scotland's higher calling to surmount McDermott's terrible declension, to stop riches leak in history, and with fail to root afresh in Ferrier's old Scotland soil. The Charter of the United Nations rests itself upon respect for the principle of equal rights and self-determination of peoples. We alone can be the roots and branches of our self-determination. Writing The Undiscovered Self just before his death, Carl Jung asked, does the individual know that he and she is the make-weight that tips the scales? It is that infinitesimal unit on whom our world depends. Likewise, writing 2.5 millennia ago, a Chinese sage called Chang Tzu mapped the way of Tao, the paths of right relationship. Speaking of the qualities of the Zen brain, the true man, the great soul, the man of calling, adapt the gender accordingly, please. What is meant by a true man? The true men of old were not afraid when they stood alone in their views. No great exploits, no plans, if they failed, no sorrow, no self-congratulation and success. They scaled cliffs, never dizzy, plunged in water, never wet, walked through fire, and were not burnt. Thus their knowledge reached all the way to Tao. Can we ask that question of ourselves, of our political servants, and of the nation in its aggregation? For as Lord Thomson wound up the first of his brief lectures in 2019, in a democracy, the state is not other. It is not either with us or against us. It is us. This morning, I've mapped out the metaphysical soil of what it means to be a nation. Roots deep in the soil and branches reaching, as a friend from Skye put it, to an urgent cosmic vision to grow upwards. I leave with you today 4 compass points. Have faith with those of truth and integrity in public affairs, to sing afresh an old song. Have faith with those who stand on solid ground, for it's the land, it is our wisdom, it's the land, it shines us through. Have faith with such as Tartan Heather, a punk folk bard from Auchinleck, who stands on Chill Street corners busking, and ye cannae put a price on your freedom, for freedom comes from within. And with Hugh McDermott on a raised beach, have faith, because the inward gates of a bird are always open. That is the secret of its song. The inward gates of a bird are always open. That is the secret of its song. This is what it means to be a human being. Let this be what it means to be a Scot. Thank you.